Nicole Principe, and I am currently a graduate student with the College of Charleston here in South Carolina. So I am currently based in Charleston, and I am in the Grice program with CFC, kind of in the marine biology graduate program there. So I have spent the last couple years working on getting my master's degree, focusing on bottlenose dolphin research here in the Lowcountry, which has been really amazing. And I've also worked part-time at the South Carolina Aquarium as an education interpreter. So I get to do a lot of educating just on all marine biology and kind of about all of our local marine species here, which is really awesome. This is a beautiful state. We have so much wildlife here. And I'm really grateful to not only get to study it, but also educate people and talk to people about it and why it is such an amazing state and why we need to focus on conservation to protect it all. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm currently doing.
Perfect. Will you share a little bit about your drone research and like what got you into that and what you've been finding out so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So my main thesis with the College of Charleston has been focusing on bottlenose dolphin distribution and habitat use patterns. So that is kind of where they are in the Charleston area and what are they doing? What is their behavior? And in order to be studying that, we have decided to use drones. And drones are still pretty new in the marine mammal field, but already they have been revolutionizing the way that we can study our marine mammals. So for the past year, I went out to different land-based locations. I never even had to get out on a boat. And I was able to use a drone to fly and survey for bottlenose dolphins to figure out, where are they spending most of their time? What areas are more preferred by them? And then what are their behaviors in those areas? So are they primarily using those areas for feeding, for socializing, just traveling, which is always really important in terms of conservation and management of, certain areas, which areas should be more protected. Um, and then the other main part of the project is studying are dolphins traveling up into freshwater. So here in the Charleston area, we kind of have our main Charleston Harbor, and that is fed by three main river systems. You have the Ashley, Cooper, and Wando River. And over the past 20 years or so, we've had a lot of just kind of intermittent sightings and strandings of dolphins really far up into these river systems where it pretty much is complete freshwater. And that is not typical dolphin habitat. Our dolphins are really uniquely adapted to living in saltwater. So for them to be going up into these freshwater parts, over time, it can be really detrimental to their health. So we wanted to know, are these dolphins frequently utilizing those areas? Is it a big part of our population that is moving up into those areas? Or is it kind of just a few individuals that maybe are lost? And why are they going up there? Is it following food? Is it changes in the environment? Is salinity increasing up in those areas over time, potentially due to climate change and sea level rise? Just to kind of figure out, is this a concern? Do we need to kind of figure out like, okay, our dolphins are changing their distribution and their range, and it's ultimately affecting their health and can potentially reduce our population size. Is there anything conservation wise or management wise that we can do to kind of help mitigate that problem? So far, we didn't really have any hard data on them up in those areas. So my study was kind of the first to go up into those areas, focusing mostly on the Cooper River, to do some systematic drone surveys and look for them up there. And I will tell you, a lot of the year I was doing my field work, it was no dolphins at all. It kind of felt like looking for a needle in a haystack, especially you're not on a boat, you're just from land. So using a drone, you're kind of limited to small areas that you can survey. So that definitely was a challenge. But um, once I finished, I definitely did have some really good data, and I did end up seeing dolphins up there. One of the most interesting things I did find is that it might be very seasonally dependent, and this could be due to water temperature or prey availability up in those areas. They seem to like to go up there kind of in like summer, late summer to early fall, um, which is super interesting, and definitely is something that we want to keep looking at to see if that is a true pattern we would see over multiple years, that that's, the period of time that they're going up there. Um, and, I did see them feeding up there too. So we definitely are thinking that it could be food related. These are, apex predators. A lot of the things they do is going to be food driven. Um, and there's still a lot we don't know. It could be that there is less prey in the harbor and those lower estuaries, that's causing them to move further up into the river to look for um, additional food. Or it could be that there is just large numbers of prey up in those upper reaches that they are trying to exploit those resources as well. Um, but even seeing moms and calves up in those areas is a little concerning, because, it's like, mom, why are you bringing your baby up into an area that is not really suitable for you? Um, so really interesting results so far. I will be defending my thesis very soon, and we'll be sharing a lot more of those results. So definitely stay tuned. Um, but it is a concern. Like I said, dolphins are specifically adapted to living in saltwater. So in our harbor and in our lower estuaries, we consider salinity to be anywhere from 20 to like 35 parts per thousand. That's the terminology we use when talking about salinity. And so if they go up into areas where it's, 10 or less, over time, they're going to start having a lot of health issues. The biggest thing we see, it starts to affect their skin. So a lot of sloughing of the skin, a lot of skin lesions, and that usually is the first indication that they are there for too long. And then it kind of starts to affect their internal organs, their internal body chemistry. And even if they are in those areas feeding, the problem is that they're not really going to be able to get nutrients in their body correctly. So sometimes we've seen dolphins up there with what we call a peanut head. And that is something we describe as kind of, if you think of a dolphin and their big melon on the top of their head, right behind that, we can see like a big indent. And that's what we call a peanut head. And that's a big indicator of a starving dolphin or an emaciated dolphin. And so usually once that happens, it's not long before usually they pass away after that. So definitely is an area of concern. And so hopefully with the results of my study, we have a little bit more information on the time of year that dolphins are going up there, and can look more at the reasons they're going up there. And also to reaching out to the fishermen in those areas is something really important too. They're up there all the time. So kind of making it more aware to them that the dolphins are not supposed to be in these areas. And they can kind of be that first, kind of like the first eyes and ears, really. If they see animals up there, they can let us know. And that way we can maybe implement a rescue or an operation to kind of guide them back into saltwater, higher salinity waters. But so far, that's kind of been the whole gist of what I've been studying and some of those early results.
Sounds fascinating and very complicated. So thank you for sharing so much about it. I have to ask though, what got you into marine mammals in the first part, and why drones? Like what got you to that place? And can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your like your research backgrounds and your schooling background? Like, how did you get from point A to point B?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as cliche as it sounds, my love for animals started at a really early age, but I kind of grew up with the idea that I would go to veterinary school. So I did my undergrad at University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, got my bachelor's in animal science, and originally was on the pre-vet track. But while in undergrad, I was exposed to a lot of other different career possibilities, and just the idea of grad school and doing more research-based careers. I was lucky enough to do 2 internships with an organization called the Wild Dolphin Project. And they are based in Florida, but they do all of their research down in the Bahamas. So I joined them on 2 of their research expeditions, um, living on their vessel for 10 days at a time, doing non-invasive research on their bottlenose and Atlantic spotted dolphins in the area. And that was really eye-opening to me, and I just fell in love with doing marine biology and field work and studying marine mammals. Um, and kind of definitely changed my mind from the route of vet school to wanting to go into graduate school and pursuing a research-based career. I also did some research in undergrad, um, not on a marine species, but it was aquatic freshwater crayfish. So that gave me some experience doing some lab work, genetic work, and what it takes to write an actual manuscript or research paper for a publication. And I really enjoyed that process. And then thinking about going into graduate school, um, I graduated undergrad a semester early, and that also gave me the opportunity to do another internship with Brookfield Zoo, which growing up in near Chicago, I grew up going to the Shedd Aquarium and Brookfield Zoo, which of course just solidified my love for animals. So to kind of do a full circle and go back there to do an internship was awesome. And so I was an animal welfare and conservation intern. I got to do 2 really cool projects. One that was looking at their stereotypic behavior in one of their polar bears to try and reduce some of her stereotypic behaviors. And another that was looking at their behavioral diversity of their 7 bottlenose dolphins. So I got to spend a couple months just watching their dolphins, looking at their behaviors, seeing how they interacted with one another. Just again, made me fall in love with dolphins. They're so goofy, so smart, um, just incredible animals. So during that process, I was looking at grad schools and found the College of Charleston. I reached out to Wayne McPhee, who runs the Coastal Marine Mammal Assessments Program at the NOAA facility that is based here. And so once I started here at CFC, I was talking to him, and it was his idea to incorporate drones into a project. And he was the one who kind of introduced the project, that we have dolphins in low salinity over time, which is really weird. And let's try and use drones to study it, which is something, that was pretty much brand new. So, drones were something I never have thought to even consider myself doing. But it was a very quick yes for me to do that. And it's been honestly a childhood dream come true. And I will say, in undergrad, once I kind of transitioned to wanting to go into the field of marine mammal research, I had talked to a professor, and she had told me, she was like, trying to work with marine mammals, it's easier to get into medical school than to work with marine mammals. So right from there, just super discouraging. And I was like, all right, like I need to figure out a plan B, something else to do. But at the end of the day, like if there is something that you're passionate about, you shouldn't let anyone try and take that away from you or discourage you from doing that. And ultimately, I think that pushed me even more to try and find the right opportunity for me. So I am super grateful that everything worked out here with the College of Charleston. Working with Wayne McPhee has been incredible, just learning from him and his expertise about our local dolphin populations has been amazing. So I am so, so happy that I did end up here and will be getting my master's very soon. And then from here, who knows? Endless opportunities.
It's very exciting to be a scientist because as you said, like there are so many possibilities in the future. And, you know, you went from doing crawdad or crawfish to marine mammals, and who knows next what can work with.
Yeah, and a lot of you know, people think that if you want to work with animals, you know, being a veterinarian is like the only career for you, but there's so many other things you can do, research based, you know, even in a marine mammal career, there's so many different things you can do. Sometimes you're out in the field doing lots of field research. And then a lot of times you're either in a lab, sometimes it's, you know, you don't even see a dolphin and you're doing a lot of lab work or data analysis. But at the end of the day, it all is super important in, you know, protecting these animals, which is the ultimate goal, at least for me, is conservation. So it's really cool to see all these different, you know, areas working together for that one goal.
Awesome. Do you have a least favorite part of what you do? Is there something that you struggle most with, whether it's, you know, something in the field, or is it physically taxing? Are there certain laws that you have to like follow by using drones? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I will say it was a lot of trial and error, um, especially when you're doing something that's still a little new. I didn't have really a ton of published papers or research to kind of help me base my paper off of. So it definitely was a big challenge in the beginning to figure out, you know, developing my methodology, how I was going to do my surveys. Dealing with drones itself is challenging, dealing with technical difficulties in the field. Um, Dealing with weather is a huge issue. So there were so many days where I couldn't go out just because it was too windy or rainy or cloudy. Um, so that was really difficult to work around. Um, Also, there are a lot of regulations involved with flying drones. So in order to do scientific research with a drone, you do need a permit to do that. So there are regulations with that permit that you need to follow um, for bottlenose dolphins to minimize any disturbance from the drone to the dolphins. Kind of the guidelines you'd want to stay at is keeping the drone about 30 meters, which is about 100 feet above the dolphins. Um, so following those guidelines and also where you can fly can be a challenge too. There are some areas that are considered no-fly zones, whether it's near an airport. I kind of had to work around flying around the Navy bases here. Um, National parks, you can't really fly around. So, you know, you kind of have to figure out, all right, what is your research goal? What question are you trying to answer? And then, you know, factoring in all these different things of like, okay, I can't fly here, so I can't, you know, study this area, but I can study this area. And then with being in Charleston, the water here is super, super cloudy and very turbid. So that was challenging as well. Just trying to see a dolphin pop up was hard. And then even if it pops up once, they're so fast and small that, you know, sometimes you see it once and then it disappears. So that was really frustrating at times, just feeling like I wasn't getting enough good data to even write anything up. So that kind of just brought honestly a lot of self-doubt throughout the process, which I think probably a lot of scientists feel, kind of that, you know, imposter syndrome coming through. But just persistence is what I kept telling myself. Just keep going, keep trying. Things will work out. And it did. It really did. So that was challenging. Um, And sometimes too, being in a science field, you have to work with a lot of different people and a lot of different, personalities and styles. So again, everyone wants to have that same end goal. So just trying to work with everyone collaboratively can be challenging sometimes, but yeah, I would say those are some of the biggest challenges and things I wasn't thrilled to do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, really, the only last question I have is what tips do you have to give to like aspiring scientists? So if you
Yeah.
want to answer that, and then maybe anything else that you want to add, and then
Yeah. Yeah, I would, kind of go back to the other comment I made of my professor being so discouraging right off the bat. But if you have a passion about something, and even it doesn't even have to be about marine biology or animals or research, just work hard and set those goals in mind, and you can achieve that. Um, you know, in the age that we are now with climate change, we need more scientists and we need more researchers. So if that is, the field that an aspiring biologist wants to go into, like, there is a place for everybody. There's still so much we don't know, even about our local dolphin population. There's so much we're still learning. Um, and yes, it is a competitive field, but there are opportunities out there. You just have to kind of put your mind to it to find it. All throughout undergrad, any opportunity I could find just to get more experience with animals, I was jumping on it as quickly as I could. And that is really important, just to kind of get as much experience as you can before you're even ready to jump into a career. So undergraduate research is super, super beneficial. You can take classes all day long. It's great, but at the end of the day, that hands-on experience is what's going to be the most beneficial in learning those skills, whether it's in a lab or out in the field. If you want to fly a drone, take your time and go learn how to fly a drone or how to drive a boat. And those are going to be the skills that kind of set you apart from other candidates, which is super important. And I'm glad that I did have a lot of opportunities from undergrad through now. So yeah, my biggest advice is don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. If you're passionate about it, keep following that, because sometimes it's hard to even know what you're interested in and what you're passionate about. So if you do already have that in mind, then just take it and run with it.
I couldn't agree more. So thank you. Any other stories you want to share or closing statements?
Sure, yeah. I will say, I feel like using drones for marine mammal research, it's going to keep growing and expanding. And there's so much you can see with using drones, and just like the observational capacity, to be able to kind of get a glimpse into mostly the private lives of these animals has been so incredible. To be able to see calves nursing from their moms below the surface of the water, seeing frisky dolphins during the summer times. Just so cool to see how smart and intelligent they are. And even using drones and filmography and photography to share these stories about these animals and the science and the research, to the public is something too that is expanding. You see a lot of things on social media these days, of amazing drone shots of whales and dolphins, and it's all really incredible the way that we can use filmmaking, to tell the stories of these animals. But too, at the same time, we do have to keep in mind that we want to keep doing it in a respectable way. Yeah, we have tons of research on how boats can negatively affect marine mammals and other species, and there's laws on how far away we should stay from dolphins in our boats, and staying in neutral anytime we come across dolphins. But drones are still really new, so we don't really have any of those set guidelines yet. But again, research does show that if you are flying a drone right above a dolphin, it can, alter their behavior, and cause a disturbance, which is something that we want to avoid. So if you are a hobbyist or, just out flying your drone and you do see dolphins, just keeping in mind that, staying above 30 meters is great to kind of reduce any disturbance. These dolphins in our area at least face a number of threats. Unfortunately, a lot of them are human related. So we want to make sure that we are minimizing as much disturbance as possible to the animals while still, sharing how amazing and beautiful they are. So I think that is really important to share to everyone.